This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. It's Wednesday, August the 6th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly, David Williams. He's the producer of the program. You'll be speaking with David when you pick up the phone to give us a shout to get in the queue and on the air. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So here we are in the throes of the hot summer. We'll get into some of the heat-related matters now in a moment. So it's perfect time for a little hockey update. Hockey Newfoundland and Labrador is pleased to announce Team NL roster for the Quebec Maritime Junior Hockey League Cup. So basically a showcase for the under-16s to show their talents off to the scouts for the upcoming draft into the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, or I guess the Quebec Maritime Junior Hockey League. They'll be playing in Dieppe, New Brunswick from the 9th of October through the 12th. Congratulations to everyone who's been selected to play, and one special shout out to my nephew Henry Collingwood, who's a member of that team. Go get him, Tank, and good luck to all hands. And records have been set in Newfoundland and Labrador ball hockey. For the first time in history, every Newfoundland and Labrador team coming home from the Nationals with medals. So we won silver in the U15 girls, U17 boys, U19 boys, bronze in the U15 boys, U17 girls, and the U19 girls. Tremendous accomplishment. Congratulations. All right, and for tennis fans, tonight is the night to see 18-year-old Toronto native Vicky Mboko playing in the semis at the National Bank Open. This is a big deal. It's a WTA 1000 level event. Tonight she gets Rybakina, who's a former Wimbledon champion. So the 18-year-old looking to make her mark. Okay, let's get into it. Again, the pictures we're seeing of the wildfires that are peppering the entire province. We've had like 192 wildfires this year already. Last year, the entire season, 58. People will talk about the amount of land lost and what have you. But the fact of the matter is, it stresses resources dramatically. Across the country, some are in the neighborhood of 750 wildfires burning right now. Yesterday, thankfully, there was the reinstating of the province-wide fire ban. Look, everybody likes to have a backyard fire, bonfire, a mug-up, whatever the case may be. But recognizing the stretched-thin resources, recognizing just what the place is so dry it's a tinderbox, even yesterday after the announcement of the fire ban, even just here in Metro, the fire department was dispatched to put out some 3 bonfires. So yeah, it's fun to have a bit of a fire for whatever reason. But please do everybody a favor and just resist. Don't do it. It's way too dangerous. It's way too dry. And just look at the resources that are absolutely being stretched to the max right across the province. So let's kind of watch our bobber on that front, please. I was flipping channels yesterday afternoon when I was doing the dishes and come across Tim Houston, the Premier of Nova Scotia, talking about their fire ban, and they've taken it a long way down the road. It feels heavy-handed, but when we know what we know about the extent of the fires, they're keeping people out of the woods. As of 4 p.m. yesterday, hiking, camping, fishing, and the use of vehicles in the woods not permitted. Trail systems through the woods are off limits. Camping is only allowed in campgrounds. Let's try to avoid the next layer of potential restrictions here. So please, please, just do not have a fire until we know it's safer to do so. The ban is going to remain in place until the 7th of September, then to be reviewed. So there you go. There may be an air quality concern in certain places of the province this morning, and there are some ways to mitigate risk if you are at risk, we'll say. You know, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald talking about it yesterday. All right, water bombers. So I think to a man, to a woman, we know full well that the province dropped the ball back in 2018 when the 5th water bomber was damaged. The humming and the hawing about whether or not we'd go through insurance, and then, of course, the deductible was really quite expensive, whether we try to repair it, whether we try to sell it, whether we should have ordered a new water bomber at the time. Hindsight is 2020. But I've seen a couple of social media posts saying, is there anybody running who's talking about adding fire suppression services? Whether that be to hire more water bomber pilots, whether it be to add a bomber or two to the roster of 4 that we have. 3 from New Brunswick have now been dispatched to this province to give us a hand. The problem with ordering water bombers is that the backlog is extraordinarily long. The province of Manitoba put an $80 million down payment on 3 new water bombers earlier this calendar year. They're not going to get the bombers until the 2031 and 32 fire seasons. So even if we get in the queue, this is a problem. Bombardier used to hold the patent for one of the most popular water bombers, or scoopers. Now it's owned by de Havilland. At the very top of the queue at that company, who's built a big facility outside of Calgary, but they can't keep up with it. So European countries are going to be satisfied first because they had their orders in first. Now with de Havilland and Bombardier and their history of relying on government support to keep the doors open and the planes being built, people are making the argument that maybe, just maybe, it's a priority for Canadian provinces to get their ordered water bombers built first. I'll leave it up to you as to whether or not you think that's a good idea. But yeah, we can have people run on, adding capacity, but that's not easy it's easier said than done. I mean, 2032 is a long time to wait, even if your down payment has been made, as such as the province of Manitoba did. So anyway, last one on the wildfires. And if you would like to talk about what you've seen and the information you had on hand, prior to an evacuation alert or an evacuation order, we're happy to have you on. Here's some people complaining about the lack of information or the disjointed areas where they find said information. When the power is cut, it really does limit your opportunity to get information. Without the power, no modem, no internet, doesn't matter what website is featuring what. So yes, all stalwarts like radio will be the go-to. I know the folks in the VOCM newsroom doing their level best to keep all the information tip of tongue for the newscast and on our website. We'll also do our best here on this program. But if you'd like to talk about disseminating the information, because time is of the essence here. If there's an evacuation order coming, people need to be prepared. So when the alert is offered and people, pack their bags to prepare for the potential for an evacuation order, information sharing is obviously crucial. If you want to take it on, we can do it. Little more, I was going to say pleasant, but maybe not for some. Seeing lots of pictures once again on my social media feed about some pretty gigantic cod being hauled out of the water in the recreational food fishery, which is encouraging. DFO being asked about it, talking about obviously a fish that big has to have lived quite a long time, But there's also that feature of the tags, the tag program. If you do indeed catch a cod that is tagged just below the dorsal fin, there are various colors, all the contact information is there. DFO really wants that tag back, to compile the data, which is important. And there's even I'll call it a reward. So, or they're worth $10, $20, even as much as $100. So if you catch a cod with the tag, please take the opportunity to contact the email address that's right at the bottom. I think there's actually a phone number there as well, so we can get those tags back. Okay. Sticking with water. So yesterday, just speaking to a story in the news media, and it's important that these disclosures are made about mass mortality events in the world of aquaculture. And there was 2 last month. So when we spoke to it, or I guess I spoke to it, got some pretty severe emails from folks in communities that have, for all intents and purposes, been saved, economically speaking, because of aquaculture coming to town. I understand that. The question that was being posed, as opposed to what the emailers are saying, is that I'm cheering for the demise or the death of the industry and consequently the loss of all those jobs. All right. That's not what I said, number one. But when the industry itself and spokespersons for the companies that were impacted by these mass mortality events say the 2 primary causes were warm water and sea lice, my comment was, there is no way to think that water is going to cool into the future. The trends are clear for warming waters. So if that's a contributing factor to mass mortality and to sea lice, we can put all the lumpfish we want inside these open pens, but those 2 trends are there for all to see. So what I asked out loud for your input is, if that's the case, what does the future hold for open pen fish farming? Because it's only going to get, quote unquote, worse into the future. So does it mean any future operations have to be brought on land? Even for the company's viability, I'll ask the questions of them. They're the people who are running their own business. These mortality events obviously come with some sort of cost to the company. Whether they have some insurance to cover off some of their liabilities, I guess it's probably a floating target. But if it does indeed pose a risk in the future, what does that mean for their operations? That's all I said. Not that everything should go by the wayside, even though there's plenty of people listening to this program this morning, whether it be the interaction with escaped farm fish into the wild species and what that means for the hybrids or whatever the frankenfish that people refer to. But that's what I said. And if you want to take it on, we can do it. All right, sticking with water. All right, so there was a report released this week from the United States Coast Guard Marine Board, the investigation into the circumstances surrounding the implosion and the death of 5 people on the Titan submersible. Not a whole lot that we didn't know about all the red flags that should have been acted upon and the in-house turmoil at this particular company, Ocean Gate. The question would be, I think, into the future, is how can there not be a final inspection of something like the Titan before they allow people to pay oodles of money to try to visit the Titanic, never to be heard from or seen again? So that, number one. Number two, and I've said this in the past, and I've been told it's really quite a cold thing to say, but I'm going to say it again, is if this type of adventure tourism is launched from, say, for instance, this province, whether it be trying to make your way across the Atlantic in a rowboat, or to have a trip down to the Titanic, or any such adventure that comes with distinct risk, should there not be some insurance in place, paid for by the folks who are entertaining these particular adventures? The reason I say it is because how often have there had to be Coast Guard resources dispatched to save someone midstream in the North Atlantic? Or, in this case, a recovery mission when all lives lost above the Titan, which cost tens of millions of dollars. And I know that that is nowhere as important as the lives lost. But at the end of the day, there's still a bill to be paid. And I do think that these adventure tourists should, prior to leaving on their journey, should take care of some of that. What do you think? We can talk about it. All right. Loves me a bit of talk about the fixed link. These are numbers we're just going to offer based on the most recent numbers we have to consider. This is not a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways as to whether or not the fixed link will ever get built. We do know whether or not you have a firm definition in your mind as to what constitutes a nation-building project. Fact of the matter is, the federal government talks like that. So whether it be some of the conversations associated with Bill C-5, whether that be Beta Nord or the Upper Churchill, which we'll get into a little further later this morning, but the fixed link. The federal Liberal government has said it's a nation-building project. It was in successive mandate letters to the ministers responsible. It's in the hands of the Canada Infrastructure Bank. This province joined forces with the Infrastructure Bank to the tune of $500,000 for further evaluation. But here's some numbers. There was a 2004 study into it. And look, the fixed link goes back all the way to Joey Smallwood. So we've been talking about this for 76 years. In 2004, they did a study. And number one, it can be built. I mean, there's no reason to believe that people who have built tunnels in other parts of the world can't build a tunnel under the Strait of Belle Isle, so it can. 2004 study was updated in 2018 by Hatch. At that time, they said it would be an expected cost of $1.67 billion. The next report from Arup said even with inflation, it would have increased the price dramatically, but they put the final price tag at $4.8 billion. And this is a couple of years ago, so it's even more than that now. Then there was the forecasted volume of traffic, which is, of course, a key issue because the volume of traffic would help understand what the toll would be. Hatch said it would be really quite robust. Arup, not so much. Arup estimated the tunnel would require about $20 million in annual operating cost. It said it would only generate $9 million in estimated revenues, so $10 million loss per year. Says Arup, just offering the numbers so that we can get into a deeper conversation on it. Hatch estimated that the tunnel would serve 162,000 passenger vehicles per year and 244,000 commercial vehicles per year. Arup, not so much. They said about only 118,000 passenger vehicles and just over 27,000 commercial vehicles, which is nowhere near the 244. Okay. Insofar as time, travelers to this province from Quebec City would shave 2 hours off their trip using the tunnel. Travelers for Winnipeg would save an hour. But anyone traveling for, say, for instance, Halifax or Boston, it would be a slightly longer trip to use the tunnel compared with the existing ferry. Then it's some of the road work that needs to be done. And I'm only offering this for the purpose of conversation. Hope people will pick up on it. All right. Highway 138, Quebec. The estimate coming from Arup and from the government of Quebec itself, that completed project will cost in the neighborhood of $3 billion, which begs the question as to whether or not Quebec, they have been working on 138, is if they have the appetite for the full completion to the tune of about $3 billion. Does this mean, when we talk nation building, and you can have whatever definition in your mind, if the Liberals say it, I wonder a couple of things. Did Premier Hogan in the most recent Council of the Federation broach this particular topic with the Prime Minister? Is it on the table? Will it come to pass with, say, for instance, federal government involvement assistance, financially speaking? For me, the obvious next step is to go out to find the tunnel building companies for them to chime in here. It's one thing for estimates to be provided by engineering companies like Hatch and Arup, but in the tunnel building world, to get further down to brass tacks about actual cost, who'd be involved, whether it be a P3 or the federal government has an equity stake, whatever it is, at this point we're just dealing with numbers as old as 2023 that probably need a little bit of TLC if we're actually going to see any pragmatic approach to this ever getting built. Whether or not you think it's a good idea, we can take it on and talk about some of the moving parts that we understand based on the numbers we have. Add to it, regardless of traffic volume, whether you follow Hatch's numbers or Arup's numbers, not only Route 138 in Quebec, but also the highway network on the Great Northern Peninsula would need a significant upgrade. Anyone who's driven on the GNP would know exactly that. So I think it's a big topic and remarkably getting a lot of conversation. I think probably spurred last week with the Marine Atlantic news and the slash of passenger vehicle fees versus commercial fees, which have not been cut. And we can get into that if you're so inclined. All right, a couple of randoms. How are we doing on the phone, Dave? All right, just a couple of quickies before we get to you. So the cabinet severance issue, which has been rescinded by the Premier, and there's lots to discuss and to understand on that front. We do know that one retiring cabinet minister has received the said payout, and that's Andrew Parsons. What we don't know is as I don't know anyway, as to whether or not he's been told to repay it or has repaid it. But he should, no matter what. Right? It should have never happened in the first place, and things that have never should have happened in the first place need to be addressed, not only with rescinding the potential for a transitional allowance, but any monies out the door need to come back in the door. I'll put that out there. And when we talked about Marine Atlantic, which is still an excellent conversation to be had, what we don't hear, insofar as I'll call it demands from the province, is for the federal government to offer Coast Guard resources to Labrador. That somehow has gotten lost in the shuffle here. It's a big deal. There's virtually non-existent Coast Guard resources in Labrador. And just think about the work that has been done in the past. The rescue missions that have been executed, the recovery missions that have been executed. Why has that not been back on the radar? You know, we could talk about defense spending, whether it be with NORAD and Arctic sovereignty and opportunities for Five-Winged Goose, all important. But Coast Guard, it's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle, and I'll put it back out there. In addition to that, got some staunch defenders of artificial intelligence in my email and social media. Okay, which is fine. We talk about the province of Quebec and their need for more power, whether it be for industrial applications, commercial applications, whether that includes data centers, of course, which would house artificial intelligence, very likely. It can be helpful. It can be problematic. We give examples like in the financial industry. AI has made some of these things like, you know, a voice message to be left to transfer money in your bank. AI can absolutely mimic that. Banks should not even allow it any longer. We talk about the cognitive issues regarding critical thinking and these large language models like ChatGPT. But here's what doesn't get discussed a whole lot, is the power consumption by artificial intelligence. It can be extraordinary. A traditional data center consumes maybe 10 megawatts, some up to 100 megawatts. There's large facilities in this world that consume 3 to 5 gigawatts of power. 5 gigawatts of power is enough annual electricity consumption to power hundreds of thousands of homes. So yes, it could be helpful for the quick dissemination of data, the compilation of data. It could be helpful in the healthcare arena. It's going to replace jobs into the future, no question. But the amount of power required really does beg the question as to whether or not we really truly need as much artificial intelligence, which is already a big part of our lives, whether or not you realize it or see it and can detect when you are looking at it. But the power required is madness. I mean, one large facility can consume enough power to generate electricity for hundreds of thousands of homes. I'll leave it up to you. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, we're talking education. That's right. The summer months are a break for the students and the teachers and administrators and staff, but this is when the hard work has to get done so that we're absolutely prepared for September. And so that hopefully the system gets improved, whether it be relations with the Education Accord or dealing with some of the systemic issues regarding the downward trend in academic outcomes since 2003, violence in schools, chronic absenteeism, whatever the case may be. We're going to talk with the new president at the NLTA, that's Dale Lamb, and then tons of show left for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2, say good morning to the new president at the NLTA, that's Dale Lamb. Good morning, Dale. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you today?
Couldn't be better. How about you?
Very good. First off, I just want to say a special word of thought to those that are battling the fires here in the province. CBN, Holyrood, CBS, Central as of last night, the emergency responders, the firefighters who are involved are mostly volunteers, so us here at the association are definitely thinking of you and our teachers.
Hear, hear. Dale, before we get into next steps for the new incoming president, what's your background in the education system?
I've got an extensive background in education. I've had 27 years in the system. Classroom teacher first, then I moved into administration. So I was vice principal for several years, and I've been a principal since 2013. So I've got lots of experience in advocating for students, and most importantly, advocating for teachers, because teachers, of course, if they're looked after, then our province's students are looked after. So I've been very passionate about my line of work, and that's the background that I hope will serve me well for the next couple of years.
It's interesting how you spoke to advocacy there. You know, for me, I try to think about that rationally. For me, advocating for students is part and parcel for advocating for teachers. Isn't it? Because, you know, the best we do for students, the better the outcomes are. More resources for students mean not easier, but a more manageable workload for teachers. Am I thinking about it in the right way, or is there a distinct difference between advocating for one or the other?
No, you're definitely on the right page, Patty, and that's the philosophy that I bought into advocacy all along, is that when you support your teachers by creating positive work conditions, then you're able to meet the needs of the children in front of you. And teachers who are well cared for translates to students who are well cared for. So my goal over the next 2 years is to continue to work of the association in working very hard to improve those work conditions and to build upon the improvements that we've already experienced.
I'm not even sure where to start here this morning, because I try to bring education up frequently, and hopefully more people take it on, because I used to say to Trent Langdon and presidents before him, you know, when the electorate are polled around election time, what are the matters most important to you? Healthcare and crime and the environment and all the jobs and taxes. If we had education at number one, the other things would, for the most part, you know, not to oversimplify things, would take care of themselves a little easier than they do today. So where would you like to start? Because I talk about chronic absenteeism and violence and academic outcomes and the education accord. So you pick a starting point and I'll follow along.
Well, I already mentioned, like, one of the top priorities to build on the gains the association has made when it comes to improving working conditions. But we really do need to be looking at retention and recruitment of our teachers. There was a recent announcement in the last budget of 400 new positions in the system. So, you know, we need to make sure that those positions are filled. And my priority now is to look at how those are deployed and how they're best going to serve our teachers in the system. So, like, retention recruitment is very big. I've already addressed the work conditions, and you've hit on a couple of points there. You know, school attendance, a very, very important issue. As an administrator, I know that a lot of work is being done by our school administrators on trying to maintain student connection to the school system. So as a result of that, you know, experience, that'll hopefully serve me well as I advocate for students to attend, because if students aren't attending, it makes it difficult for teachers to do the work. And then you're going to end up with students who are not in the system, as you just alluded to, that are going to be contributing to a more negative part of our society. So, you know, I will start with work conditions, but work conditions and retention and recruitment are certainly part and parcel of one another. Yeah,
they're hand in glove for me. And chronic absenteeism, people might roll their eyes when I talk about it as much as I do, but the stats are clear. If you're chronically absent from school in grade 6, 75% of those kids never graduate high school, which is a problem in the modern world. Not to say that everyone's got to go to university in the aftermath of the K-12 system, but that creates a huge problem. Let's talk about recruiting and retention, because it's very similar to the healthcare conversation, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. Every single year we talk about trouble to recruit teachers, say, for instance, in Labrador or more remote rural parts of the province, for a couple of things: access to amenities, travel, housing. So how do you craft a model for recruiting and retention here? Because it's really more complicated than just the 2 R's.
Yeah, and it really does come down to some things that are already coming out, partnerships with Memorial University here in the province, rural cohorts, making sure that, if you do have talent in your community as a rural school, that you try to secure those people and make sure that they're recruited right away so that they can stay connected to their school community. So there's a lot of effort that needs to be made, but one thing that, that has come up is the importance of mentorships. And mentorships are very important to keep people in the positions that they attain. And there's a lot of, the majority of teachers are passionate about their work. They want to do extremely well. So as a result of that, connect the younger teachers who are just coming into the profession with those mentors to keep them connected to, as I said already, the community and also to the profession.
Fair enough. Just a couple of quick, maybe random ones before we run out of time, and then I'll let you have the floor. Talk about the administrators, what the work they're doing for kids who are not in school in one day or another. For me, it's always been, a question of why are you not in school? And I'm not so sure we have a real good understanding of why every kid misses school. Look, you might have the sniffles. Your folks might take you to Disney. You might be at a hockey tournament, whatever the case may be. But for other underbelly issues, like violence at home and transportation or poverty or whatever it might be, that requires departments outside the Department of Education to also play an active role, as opposed to the silos that government operates in.
And Patty, you're absolutely right when you say that. Like anybody who's worked with me, they've heard me talk about the puzzle. And the puzzle needs to come together for the youth of our province. And that means justice, health, education. We all need to come together in order to address those needs. School attendance has gone down since COVID. And people have been prioritizing other things over education. Before COVID, education was paramount. You had to go to school. So, when it comes to making sure that things are looked after in society, the puzzle does need to come together, and education is just one piece. Everyone needs to be on the same page.
Absolutely. Education Accord. Like the 10-year roadmap for the healthcare system, we're now entertaining one for the education system. Some of the initial reports have been out there. Your initial takeaways, because for me, I'm not a teacher, but we're talking about really tailoring the curriculum to individual students, which sounds like a lot of work. I understand the background of why that could be very beneficial, but your initial takeaways on the Education Accord and your relationship with Drs. Burke and Goodnow.
And, I was a part of the Education Accord in meetings. The past President Langdon offered that opportunity to me as Vice President. And anytime you have an opportunity to contribute to something that's groundbreaking or that's going to change things, you need to make sure that your voice is there. My initial take on the Accord, once the Accord is finalized, I'll offer that. But what I will say is that it's not going to work unless all parties are on the same page. And the other thing is that the professional learning needs to be offered for our province's teachers. So if you're talking about groundbreaking changes in curriculum, about individualized instruction, then the teachers need to be trained for that, and they need to be able to, adequately meet the needs of the learners based on the recommendations of that group.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm really interested in it. We've had both of the good doctors on, and we'll get them back just prior to September to see where we are. Final thoughts to you, Dale. Anything else you'd like to add?
I guess, Patty, I really appreciate this opportunity, and I do listen often, if not regularly all the time, but you have been a very big advocate for education, and I've listened to the contents of what you've shared. I will say class size and complexity, it's a very significant issue for our teachers right now, which are contributing to working conditions. When it comes to, the needs of students today, they're far greater than when I entered the profession 27 years ago. So when, efforts are being made to lower class sizes. That needs to be celebrated. But we as an association need to continue that push and that strive towards excellence for our teachers, which, as I said, will be excellence for our students.
I said I was going to let you go. That was a lie. Class size and class composition are two really different matters here. Inclusive education makes all the sense in the world, but if we're simply just putting all the children under the one roof, does not equal inclusive education. The model does not work. Where should we go specifically with it?
And Paddy, as I go into my term, you'll hear more about my thoughts on that. What I will say is that inclusive education, it fundamentally very, very principally sound, looking after needs of all students, but that needs to be adequately resourced as well in order for it to work. So when it comes to, my thoughts on inclusive education, I'm all about, especially as a principal, all about inclusion of all students, but it needs to be adequately resourced with human resources in order for it to work.
Really appreciate your time, Dale. Good luck in your 2-year tenure as the president. You're always welcome on the show.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Paddy. Have a great day.
The same to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's Dale Lamb, the new president at the NLTA. When we come back, we're talking about the wildfires, some of the restrictions that are in place in this province, and some of the measures being taken around the country. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Just quick travel advisory. So we've been told that there's 2 dead moose just east of Arnold's Cove. So if you're heading into St. John's, heading towards Arnold's Cove now, there's 1 dead moose on the left side of the highway, 1 dead moose on the right side of the highway. So it could be a snarl. And like always, take your time, keep your eyes peeled. But 2 dead moose just east of Arnold's Cove on the highway. Let's go to line number 3. Corey, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Good morning.
I just wanted to get the conversation started with the ban that Nova Scotia came down with. I'm one of the residents of the evacuated town of Small Point, Broad Cove, Blackhead, Adams Cove. If we don't keep people out of the woods, this is going to happen again. In our community, there's a strong feeling collectively that these have been set on purpose, but without going into that conversation too much, even if they're not being set on purpose, just being up there can create a situation where it could possibly happen again, completely by accident. I would ask that someone from our government reach out perhaps to this program to speak to what Newfoundland is considering. A $1,000 fine for starting a fire is not deterring. A $25,000 fine just for being caught in the woods, that might wake people up. Even if we did it by district rather than the entire province or just the island, just the CBN area. But I just want to get that conversation started. Everyone in my community is terrified, and even if we do get to go back home and still have a home, we know this is going to happen again. We've had 9 since May. The RCMP advised yesterday they're not even aware of the numbers, so they're asking us to call it in, no matter how small it is. Yeah, that's it.
Let's just go down through what they've done in Nova Scotia. So basically, hiking, camping, fishing and the use of vehicles in the woods not permitted. Trail systems through the woods off limits. Camping only allowed in campgrounds. Okay, a couple of things. For starters, how you actually enforce this is a very tricky question because there's a lot of woods and trails in this province and in Nova Scotia, I would suggest. Secondly, if I'm walking down the trail with my dog with no lighters, no intention on having a fire, really no capacity for me to start a fire, things like that is where people will say, well, what are we really doing here? If we're trying to investigate folks who maybe purposefully set these wildfires, of course, law enforcement has to investigate and hopefully catch them and prosecute them and imprison them. So how about just those very innocuous recreational activities? Down the trail to pick some berries, down the trail with the dog. How do you navigate or balance those types of activities with other potentially dangerous activities?
Yeah, and I was speaking with my family the last couple of days and thought to myself, you know what? As soon as we have a fire ban, we should have an ATV ban. Just thinking about, you've got spark arresters not working properly. You've got a 300 and 400 degree muffler going through high grass that's brown. But I think what Nova Scotia did is just, you know what? This is getting out of hand. Everyone's lawn is crunchy. The moss in the woods is crunchy. Let's just keep everyone out of there for now. They're going all the way to October. Again, I'm not saying to follow 100% suit. I don't know about berry pickers, but if there's no one in there, we're mitigating a risk. And a lot of my friends have lost their houses, their homes. thankfully, as the last time I heard, no one has been hurt yet. You know, the old saying, you play with fire long enough, someone is going to get hurt or worse. This is not going to stop. And I just want to get the conversation started. I understand. Listen, we have an ATV. I don't spend a whole lot of time on it, but we're always in the woods. We're avid trouters. We're always on bicycles. We're always hiking. We're berry pickers. We're always on those trails. But so what? It's just too hot. There's too many of these, and you know, it's not going to be the popular decision. It's a big boy decision. None of them are nice to make. Like I said, you know, people. I'm walking my dog all the time. If I had to walk my dog just around the community and not in the trails, then so be it. I'm willing to do that. You know, it's annoying to have to brush your teeth. It's annoying to have to wear a mask that we had to do for years. It's annoying to have to wear a seatbelt. But so what? We're mitigating the risk. You know, maybe if it's just ATVs, side-by-sides, what have you. But then if these are being purposely set, who's to stop someone from grabbing a basket and saying, oh, I'm just going up to pick a few berries? And then we got another fire.
I understand.
So
I know.
Keep everyone the hell out of the woods.
I only ask the questions based on your want to provoke the conversation. That's kind of where my mind is. And for folks yelling at the radio about government overreach and all the rest of it, maybe, just maybe, put yourself in the shoes or the circumstance for someone who's living with these fires, repeated fires in their backyard, people who have lost their homes. There is a real extreme risk here. So I'm not suggesting one thing or another, but we can and we should understand the risk. And everybody listen to the program, even if you love getting on the quad and getting into a certain spot in the woods, you know full well that you might be the most conscientious ATV operator in Canada, but that spark coming from your tailpipe is really nothing you can control necessarily. And you're right, the crunch underfoot is just very apparent. All you have to do is walk across anybody's lawn, unless they've got one of these lush green lawns, which I don't know how they accomplish that. It's dry out there, folks, so we all owe it to each other. And just think about the folks on the ground and in the air trying to combat these fires and what they're doing and what the communities are feeling like and how the suffering has been pretty widespread this year right across Canada, maybe more so than in years past. Corey, I'll give you the final thoughts, sir, before we say goodbye.
Okay. My final thought on it is, while the police are doing a great job, there is a very low police presence. It's a reactive presence more than proactive, and that's just because of the resources that are available. They can't have people just sitting up in the woods waiting for everybody. So there is a real concern in our community of the possibility of vigilantism, which is a horrible thought. But people are on edge, as you said. Emotions are at an all-time high. So I'm just hoping that we can all get the conversation started and agree to really implement some effective decisions. Thank you very much for your time.
I appreciate yours, Corey. Be well.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah, look, I even included those remarks about what's happening in Nova Scotia off the top of the program. And again, like Corey, like me, is provoking the conversation about just what we have to do for our own personal responsibility to make sure nothing that I do, on purpose or otherwise, or inadvertently, leads to one of these fires. It's just too devastating. It's easy enough if we're, like, for instance, thankfully for now, knock on wood, there's no wildfire burning close by where I live that puts me and my home and my family in jeopardy, thankfully, and hopefully never does come to pass. But for folks who are living it, that's the reality today. Obviously, their minds would be going in different directions than others who are not living around these fires or have been evacuated from their home that could be lost to wildfire. So what we need to do, let's just hope that we don't find ourselves in a place where government does intervene any further. I mean, that's one thing we can do insofar as the envelope of personal responsibility goes. The better we think about it, the more risk averse we are individually, hopefully lessens or decreases the possibility for the government to take further action on this front. So let's all just do our level best. Let's see here. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number one. Say good morning to the gentleman seeking the Progressive Conservative nomination in the voting district of Mount Sion. That's Wayne Tibbs. Morning, Wayne. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you this morning?
Very well. Thank you for asking. How about you?
I'm good. Busy, of course. Before I do that, announce what I'm doing. I'm trying for the Mount Sion nomination for the PC party. But I was yesterday, while I was on my campaign, I got called to go to help evacuate some of the people in Holywood. And you were touching about the fires, and I'll tell you something, it's really, really hard when those people got to be evacuated. There was people that were crying from their homes to the place they had to go. And nobody wants to see that. So if we all pay attention to what we're doing, we should be able to protect everybody like that.
Fair ball. I've got a friend who's displaced right now, evacuated, and they're scared, and I understand why.
Yes, and they are scared. And when you see, it's heartbreaking when you see that those people that have lived in homes for years and years and years, and now when they might have to go back to nothing. Hopefully that doesn't happen to any one of us. And if it does happen, I hope the present government will jump in and help as much as they can. Anyway, getting back to my nomination, I'm seeking nomination for the Mount Sia district, and I think I'm new to politics, so a fresh face I think is always good to have. You've got a lot of new ideas and things that you'd like to see happen. So I've just let everybody know that I'm out there looking for their nomination, and that's going to take place on Tuesday next week at 4 to 8 at the Tabernacle on Claremont Road.
Is there anybody else chasing the nomination for the PCs in Mount Sia?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
There's a fellow named Darrell. He's out there trying to. So that's two of us. So that's why we need to have a vote, I guess.
Absolutely. So I guess that's Darrell Hines. I did see that float by, actually.
Darrell Hines, yes, Darrell Hines, yes, sorry. And so that's what we're doing. We're both out campaigning, and I'm going knocking on doors now after I get off the phone with you, and see if I can't drum up some of my support.
What are your priorities in Mount Sia, Wayne?
Well, there's an awful lot of things in Mount Sia that needs help with. Of course, we got the health care up there. We got the hospital in that district, and I think we're going to get the new hospital will probably be going up in that district, the one that's going to replace St. Clair's. So that's always good. The other thing too, you can't touch enough on is crime. I mean, crime in districts now is taking over, and we've got to pay attention to all that. Matter of fact, 4 o'clock this morning, someone came on my property, and I do have cameras on my home, and that discourages them. But they were going around, so I reported that to the RNC, and hopefully they got out and they nabbed the fellow that was trying to break into cars.
Yeah, they're working our neighbourhood, feels like every single night. On that front, when we talk about public safety, when people are polled in this city and around the province, public safety and feeling less safe is a pretty popular sentiment. So is it as fundamental as hiring more police officers, or what are the other layers? Because I think it's a bit more complicated than simply hire more cops.
I think so too, Paddy. I think that we should have a lot more neighbourhood groups that are watching our neighbours' properties and stuff like that. And if someone, like this morning now when someone came up on my camera, I reported to the police. So that should happen with everybody, because if you stop them from breaking into one car, you're doing something. And discouraging them from coming in the next time, because I mean they always come back. I mean they don't, they get a slap on the hand for doing stuff and then they're back again. But the more you catch them, the more it's going to deter them.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And that's the issue regarding some of that's really kind of federal conversation about the type of punishment for whatever type of crime. Wayne, anything else you'd like to talk about this morning?
Well, going back to the fires again, Paddy, I think this province needs to really step forward individually and make sure that they don't cause any of those fires. The tourism here in Newfoundland is a big business. It's $1.4 billion, I think, it brings in annually. And, there's just so much you could lose if we destroy our province with just negligence. So I'm hoping everybody's going to get out and vote for me. If they have any information, I do have a Facebook account now up. Matter of fact, I'm new to social media too, Paddy. So I'm doing my best to get out there.
Well, I'm not going to say that you're better off without it, because, of course, you need it when you're trying to connect with people as a potential candidate. So I wish good luck on the campaign trail leading into the nomination vote next week. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you very much, Paddy.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. That's Wayne Tibbs.
Bye-bye.
He's looking for the PC nod to represent the party in the upcoming election, whether it be on or before the 14th of October of this year. Let's keep going. Let's go to line number 2. Charlie, you're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Paddy.
Good morning to you.
I'll try not to ramble on this first thought. I was out picking berries this morning, 6 o'clock, raspberries in the back garden, and the smoke was pretty bad. I guess from the southerly wind that was driving from the Avalon. Anyway, I got to thinking. I remember Shirley MacLaine one time. I was reading one of her books, and she said, when I go to a party, I try to find one person that I can talk to, because parties bore the hell out of me. And if I can find one person to talk to, I have a pretty good night. And I guess they got me reflecting on how we live our day-to-day lives. You can, of course, talk to people who are always doomsayers, the sky is falling kind of thing. I guess the majority that we talk to would be small talk, daily health problems and whatever. But I was kind of reflecting this summer. Now we're seeing fires, floods, and you name it, and you even got some nuclear saber rattling with Russia and the United States. But I think it seems like it has to hit home. I mean, people who are losing their homes with fire this year, or being evacuated and so on. Last election, these problems, environmental problems, didn't even rank in the top 5. And it's like in the summer, we finally realized how fragile everything is with dryness and forest fires and hurricanes and so on. I don't know if you want to comment on this, but sometimes I think we're a very strange species, and I've often said we live in a bubble. I don't know if you want to comment or not.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of people operate, and I hate offering generalizations, but I'll give it a shot here. A lot of people operate in a 3-foot window, right? Unless it has a direct impact on their lives, then they maybe don't give it much in the way of consideration, which is, I guess, in the busy world and the pressures that we're all facing and all the other moving parts in a complex life, I get where that comes from. But if we're talking about things like shared responsibility, if we're talking about broad strokes of government policy, it might not impact you directly today, but it might tomorrow. So giving some thought to some of these big, complicated world issues is not a waste of time, even if it isn't going to interrupt your what you have or what time you eat supper tonight or what time you get up tomorrow morning. They all indirectly do have an impact no matter what we're talking about. Like, it really, truly, it's a very small world. So it might feel like it's not something that you need to worry about, but it may indeed complicate other tangents in your life, which you may or may not realize it, but those big life issues are having an impact. So it's just... So I hate being, bashing people's character because, people listening have different worries and thoughts and goals in this world. But the world is so small that no matter what we're talking about, it has some impact on you, whether you realize it or not.
Well, I like the way you explain that. I was thinking all you need is a guy like Putin to say, I better strike first there, push a button because he's crazy or he's in the mood, and we're all gone. But anyway, thanks for that, Paddy. That makes me feel a little better.
Just 1 second, Charlie, because I'm trying to put a new good foot forward here. Let me take a break for the news. I'll put you on hold. We'll come back and you can speak to aquaculture, which I think is what you called about.
Yes, okay.
Okay, let's do that. Let's take a break for the news. When we come back, Charlie's in the queue, and then lots of time for you. Don't go away. Back to the show. Let's go to line number 2 and rejoin Charlie. Charlie, you're back on the air.
Okay, just a quick note. Our Premier, does he have a nickname, Johan, Johan?
I don't know.
On CBC this morning, early morning show, talked about the fires on Route 92 in Newfoundland, and it said Premier Johan. I had to look twice. Johan. He made the comment that it was historic proportions or something, right? Where would they get Johan, I wonder?
I don't know. It's either someone just putting some a mistyped word into the scroll that the newsreader was just referring to, but that's a strange thing to say.
Yeah, that's not very close to John Hogan, is it?
No, it is not.
Patty, I was listening to your conversation regarding farm salmon. I've always had mixed feelings on it because I can see both sides, right?
Me too. Look, I mean, it's part of the food chain in this world. People need protein. I understand all of that stuff. And it's funny how, look, and I know I've been doing this a long time, people kind of hear what they want to hear sometimes. I basically just said that with the well-documented trends of warming waters, if that's been one of the causes for the mass mortality, I wonder what the future of the industry looks like. That's all.
Yeah, I thought that was a good comment. I got into reading a little bit about what was happening out in BC, and they talked about sea lice out there. Apparently, they treat the fish with a substance. I thought it was hydrogen peroxide, or as close to it, and they give them bathe them down in that, and of course that stresses the fish, and they probably die sometimes, and then it's dumped into the ocean. And I thought, I wonder if they use the same practice in Newfoundland to get rid of sea lice. You wouldn't know, would you?
Well, I don't know if they use hydrogen peroxide specifically. I do know about the use of antibiotics. I do know that they're trying to introduce more lumpfish to combat the sea lice in these fin fish farm operations. But hydrogen peroxide, basically what I know about that is people can use it for their dental health by swishing it in their mouth. We also used to use it before we went to Florida to make our hair blonde.
Yeah. I just a comment on the South Coast rivers. I know the Con River has come up a lot because of the almost no salmon going up there. But some of the rivers I know of down there are still healthy, and there seemed to be no effect over the years of farm salmon on these. That's more on the Southwest Coast I'm talking about. Anyway, just wanted to make a comment on that. The last thing I wanted to say was on Gull Island. I don't know if people have been reading up on this, but the MOU, I hope it's going to be a real election issue, and I hope that the PCs are going to really look into this and force some kind of deeper discussion on it. It's, Patty, I'd say again, it's a bad deal, and it took me a while to come around to that. But the more I studied it, the more I realized this is not a good deal for Newfoundland overall. You know.
Give us a couple of reasons as to why.
I'm sorry?
Give us a couple of reasons as to why it's not a good deal. Just for the purpose of conversation.
There's a number. I didn't list them down, but the overall thing with who's getting the most out of it in terms of the dollar benefit, to me, greatly benefits Quebec, the same as the 69 deal, not quite as bad as that. When Danny was talking about rates being fixed and so on, I thought he was off base, but in essence, that's what happens. And then Newfoundland Hydro and the Newfoundland government are going to be left with a huge debt for these transmission lines that they have to build. And then there's the environmental assessment that they need to do that seems like they're skipping. So that's just some of them. But overall, it seems like Quebec is benefiting way more than Newfoundland is, which reminds me again of the 1969 deal, you know?
Yeah. Now, the whole fixed price thing, so for market elasticity, that is something that we absolutely need to consider on the path of these definitive agreements. There is escalator clauses. The power will be getting more and more expensive for Hydro-Quebec over the course of this term. Whether or not the term is too long, we can talk about that as well. And overall benefits, like for instance, debt on transmission lines. Supposing we were going this alone, let's just use hypotheticals because that's all we really have to go with. If we were going this alone, aka Muskrat Falls, we were always going to go into debt to build anything. So that point being made, and it's made repeatedly, I understand why, but if anything is going to get built, then we don't have any money. Inevitably, we're going to have to borrow it, so the debt is predictable. Regardless if Hydro-Quebec is involved or Hydro-Manitoba or, say, go it alone or we get in bed with Fortis. Like, whatever the case may be, there's always going to be a debt incurred. The one point that people make all the time that I really don't know what role it could even play in negotiations is how much we pay for power today versus how much they pay in Quebec. So what are we, like 14.25 cents per kilowatt hour? Quebec, on average, because they have rolling numbers, on average about 8 cents. How does that even get incorporated into that negotiation? Because we brought our own problem to the table. No doubt in my mind, Hydro-Quebec or the province of Quebec is not going to say, oh, well, let's lower your rates, because they don't have anything to do with my rates. So at that point, I don't really get where people are coming from. But how about you?
I don't buy that point at all. I think that's a totally different discussion. But I'd like to see the project separated. As Gabe pointed out, this is a real bonanza with the present Churchill Falls and the upgrade there. We should be looking at Gull Island and some of the other stuff they've talked about totally separate from that, because it's a cash cow, and I don't think we're getting our share of that cash.
Possibly
anyway,
not.
I guess I'll leave it at that.
I appreciate the time, Charlie. Thanks for doing it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, we're going to take a break early because when we come back from the break, we are going to take some of the news conference being held by Premier Hogan regarding the wildfires. Don't go away. Welcome back to the programme. Well, we're anticipating taking remarks from Premier Hogan this morning regarding the wildfires. We don't know what he's going to announce, but we'll soon find out. Like most government press conferences, they're delayed. So this one was scheduled for 10:15, has not yet started. So Tony's in the queue to talk about the fixed link. I'm looking forward to speak with Tony Power. He's a trucker who listens to the show. I communicate with Tony on social media all the time. So you hang tough, Tony, while we wait for Premier Hogan, and we'll see what we hear about the wildfires here this morning. So a couple of quick shout-outs. So we talk about folks on the ground who are professional firefighters, you know, and then the volunteer firefighters and the folks who are operating the helicopters and the water bombers as pilots. And we talk about the good work they're doing and keep it up and be careful. Then we talk about, you know, communities who are opening their arms to welcome those who've been evacuated. Organizations like the Red Cross who are doing what they can. Salvation Army doing what they can. But let's give it also a special shout out to those who are working for Avalon Ground Search and Rescue in Holyrood. They're working the fire. So a lot of people offer to help when disasters happen. But of course, folks like Avalon Ground Search and Rescue offer that kind of support, whether we're talking about looking for a lost hiker or a berry picker, and in this case, the wildfires. So I'll go through a couple of messages coming directly from the group. If you want to support your local search and rescue team, please consider donating to the team. This helps with extra training and equipment, which makes things run smoother during emergency situations. To have adequate training and equipment makes these incidents run like clockwork. It's hard to talk about using volunteers to help in an emergency because they're not trained. They're not covered by insurance or workplace NL. Instead, they have to take, you know, their own chances, assess their own risks, and proceed as they see fit. Everyone, as they say, this has been a very common rally phrase, especially during the pandemic. Everyone's in this together, so please obey and respect directions given by search and rescue volunteers who are doing the door knocks and or the roadblocks. And of course, they're just the messengers. And as the old saying goes, don't shoot the messenger. So they're volunteering, they're bringing forward messages that were given to them by folks like the St. John's Regional Fire Department and the department responsible at the provincial level. So big thanks to everyone who's involved. Forestry, RCMP, the RNC, Newfoundland Labrador Health Services, Central Avalon Ground Search and Rescue, River Search and Rescue, Canada Red Cross, Salvation Army, Town of Holyrood, Town of CBS, and others. So they've also been asking people, if you don't live in CBS, please stay away from CBS for all the reasons imaginable. Do we have any idea, based on the visuals, as to whether or not the Premier is there? All right. Haven't even got the screen yet, so they're always late, so we'll have to wait on them. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Tony. You're on the air.
Good morning, Teddy. How are you?
Best kind. How about you, Tony?
Oh, we're hanging in there.
Good man. Listen, quick heads up. If the Premier jumps in while we're still talking, I'm going to have to cut this off, put you on hold, we'll come back. How's that?
Sounds good to me, sir.
Okay, buddy. Where do you want to start?
Well, everybody's talking about the fixed link, I guess, there yesterday, and well, probably over the past few days now, I guess since Marine Atlantic announced cutting the fees for passenger traffic. There's more to it than, I guess, putting a tunnel across the Gulf. You still got to cross the St. Lawrence, no matter where you want to go, either in Tadoussac on the Quebec side to get up the North Shore of Quebec to 138, or you got to cross in Baie-Comeau across the St. Lawrence back to Matane if you want to go to New Brunswick.
Right.
So this will add time to a trip. Like to travel by truck, it would add pretty well 24 to 36 hours because we're limited on what we can drive to cross that. With us hauling heavy loads, like there's hills, if you're heading out of Quebec and want to come down that way, once you get to St. Anne de Beaupré, like there's hills in there, man, you could smoke 3 cigarettes from top to bottom. They're huge, so obviously it'll reduce our time. The facilities is one thing on both sides, like the Newfoundland side and Quebec side. In regards to the tunnel, I'd like to see the tunnel for the people of Labrador. They wouldn't be left hostage. It'd be like the Confederation Bridge, the PEI. They could leave at any time.
Yeah. So one of the big questions, and you're a man who's on the road, you're a truck driver. if you are, like, I don't know where you go. I see you post from different areas where you're doing drops and doing pickups all over the place. But the concept of driving that additional distance to catch the tunnel versus even having to wait at the ferry terminal and then to wait as you cross the strait, is that based on your understanding of what you would do and your fellow truck drivers? Would more and more take the opportunity to drive up and take that link, if indeed 138 was complete, if indeed the Great Northern Peninsula Highway Network was where it needs to be? So that's the basic question. Would you do it?
Some probably would to avoid Marine Atlantic, because some people out there just got a pure hate for them, for the lack of a better term. Personally, I would not take it unless it was, dire straits, because I'd be burning extra fuel. For the hill terrain to train in there. Then you got to look at the springtime of the year on the southern Labrador, when you get the freezing fog with the snow and everything. The roads are shut down. You get the windy conditions. There's a lot of open country. There's no difference. Like, we're on an island. We got water on three sides. Quebec is on the other. We don't have a lot of options to get on or off. And like, to travel that in a truck, to me, it will be my last resort.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not a trip that I would make very often in my entire lifetime. And I haven't driven off of the island since I drove onto the island in 2000. So I'm not speaking from a whole lot of personal experience here, which is why I'm glad you are calling. So, like, I read some of the numbers earlier about you could indeed save time if you were coming from Winnipeg or Quebec City, but not if you're coming from Halifax or from, Boston. So what's your message to folks out there who are thinking about it and talking about it? I think it's worthy of discussion because we've been kicking this around for 70 years. So what's your message out there? How should we be thinking about this in your opinion, Tony?
I think it should be something that should be looked at and seriously looked at, not babbled about during election times or election promises or feasibility studies. Take the feasibility study money and put it into something worthwhile. Yes, it would benefit, like I said, especially for the people of Labrador. They can leave there, come to the island part. They come here now, they have to fly with outrageous charges, for medical appointments. They can leave, jump in their vehicle within a day. They can be here.
Tony, just 1 second. I'm going to have to put you on hold quickly. We're going to take the Premier. I'll come back with you. Okay, buddy?
Okay, sir.
There we go. Tony's on hold.
So first, I'll start this morning again by just sending our extreme thanks and gratitude to everyone who's involved in the emergency response throughout the province right now. Volunteers, humanitarian support organizations, our aircraft pilots, officials in the Department of Forestry, all the local fire departments who've stepped up. These are career and volunteer firefighters from communities across the province, as well as the firefighting equipment that they're using and stepping up, offering help across the province right now. It's a tremendous benefit that we have all these individuals who are willing to step up at this very difficult time and dangerous time, and it's very difficult work. So I do want to thank everybody for their continued efforts. Also, a huge thank you to New Brunswick. As I said yesterday, they provided a bird dog, and they will be sending today 3 more aircrafts to our province, and they're called Air Tractor 802s. So that will certainly help with suppression efforts across the island when they arrive. Just when we're talking about assets from across the province, so everybody, across the country I should say, so everybody is aware, there's almost 800 fires burning across the country right now, and that's 6.8 million hectares have been burned to date. So it is a testament to how busy the season is, not only in Newfoundland and Labrador, but across the country. And of course, as I said yesterday, it is all hands on deck, and there has been a tremendous effort by government departments and our community partners. But individuals, again, I will stress across the province, have a role to play throughout the remainder of this fire season. Last night here in St. John's, our local fire department had to respond to 3 reports of bonfires last night. This is on the same day that Minister Dempster announced a provincial fire ban. So I can't stress enough how important it is for everybody to pay attention to the rules in place regarding fire bans right now. We also have looked at our legislation and our regulations regarding fines in the event that someone does violate a fire ban, and in my opinion, those fines are way too low. They can be as low as $75 for a fine. So we will be immediately looking at increasing the amounts to serious numbers in the event, serious dollar numbers in the event anyone is found to breach a fire ban during the remainder of this summer and into the future. Just other things to take note of for individuals. Please make sure that in areas where these fires are, that recreational watercrafts are not in the area where water bombers are using water to fight the fires. Of course, they'll get in the way. It'll be dangerous. We need to make sure that those areas are clear so the people flying the water bombers can do their work. And again, please maintain vigilance with regards to anything you're doing near wooded areas. Just want to remind people or talk about the provincial-wide fire ban because we had some questions on that yesterday. So while the minister has put the fire ban back in place province-wide, it does not mean that there were not fire bans throughout the province regionally, and particularly in the area where the Adams Cove fire happened, there was actually a fire ban in place at the time that this started. So it just goes to show really how vigilant we need to continue to be. I'll just provide an update now on the fires, the 3 fires now that we're looking at across the province. The first one in the Adams Cove area. It is now up to 1,432 hectares, so that has now doubled in size since we were here yesterday morning. But the good news is that the fire has grown inland, which is away from the communities, and we have no reports as of this morning of any further homes lost in that area. But again, please keep in mind it is very smoky, so it's going to take some time to get that confirmation. But there is potentially some lost cabins in the Broad Cove Pond area. Again, with the good news, though, the southern flank, which it will be moving towards communities in that part of the province, is in good shape, and light winds today. So there are favorable weather conditions today for continued suppression efforts on the southern flank. This also allows us to set up a base, I guess a command trailer in the Salmon Cove area. So you may have seen that Salmon Cove is on alert for potential evacuation, but we feel confident enough that we're able to send our own teams in there to set up a base close to the fire, close to the situation, a staging area which will allow for food to be delivered, for firefighters to be right there on the ground, and for helicopters to fly in and out of that area. So that will help tremendously and hopefully give some comfort to people in that area that we feel comfortable going into Salmon Cove, but still to make sure that they pay attention in case things change, that it could obviously turn into an evacuation order. There are 3 water bombers that will be fighting this fire in this part of the province today. 3 bucketed helicopters and 20 ground crew, with 10 additional ground crew to come tomorrow. As for the Holyrood fire, there was only marginal growth last night, so it's still about 22 hectares, which it was yesterday. There was some concern last night that it was going to jump the highway, Route 60, but the team, did tremendous work and managed to hold the fire to 22 hectares, so that's good news there. Today we'll have 1 helicopter and 10 ground crew and local fire departments in that part of the province, in the Holyrood area, and again, low winds there, so those are favorable weather conditions. And the new fire to talk about, which we didn't talk about yesterday, it started at some point yesterday afternoon, I think, is just off the Bay d'Espoir Highway. So it's about 2.8 kilometers from the highway and about 36 kilometers down from the Trans-Canada Highway. As the crow flies, that will be about 20 kilometers from Grand Falls, Windsor. But there are favorable winds there as well today, so the fire should be blowing away from Grand Falls, Windsor. But we do anticipate lots of smoke in that area. Of course, we've been through a fire in this area, not in the too distant past, so I know individuals on the Conagra Peninsula will be concerned, their isolation in the event that the highway has to close, and we certainly have contingency plans to deal with that in the event that it does happen. No structure loss reported in that part of the province, and we'll have 1 water bomber, 3 helicopters, and the 3 assets from New Brunswick will be going to that part of the province today. So that's an update on the fires today, this morning I should say, because as we know things can change. I'll ask Minister Haggie for some comments, and then Minister Dempster.
Thank you very much, Premier. I'll start as I did yesterday by saying thank you to the crews, both in the air, which we see, and on the ground, who get buried in the smoke and have a dirty job, but they did a wonderful job yesterday, particularly around Holyrood and that southern flank near Adams Cove. I think it's fair to say the province is a tinderbox at the moment. I think people really need to be extremely careful with how they behave and what they do, particularly smokers. We have had speculation, and social media is rife with it. But I would encourage people to contact the RCMP if they see anything unusual. And the example of 3 bonfires in Metro yesterday is nuts, given the circumstances, quite frankly. They can report anonymously if they would prefer, and the RCMP will take those seriously. The other comments have been around, assistance from elsewhere, and the Premier's touched on some of that. I think it's useful for our residents to know that Public Safety Canada have a physical presence on our Emergency Operations Committee who has direct links to Ottawa. And similarly, we have someone from Canadian Forces who has direct links into the military system. So there is a direct line to the federal government. I spoke with the federal minister, Minister Olszewski, yesterday, and the country is in a difficult situation, as the Premier said. I don't think there's much more I can add there, except we really need to be careful, individually and collectively. If you see something, report it. Thanks very much, Premier.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Dempster.
Thank you, Premier. I think I'll just start with something that I'm getting an increasing number of emails on is around the fine piece. And a couple of things I want to say on that is right now the Act allows that if somebody is confirmed to have started a fire, they can be liable for the entire cost if the courts determine, and that could be up to a multi-million-dollar fine. People are asking increasingly what we are doing as a government, and I want to say that we are continuously monitoring the situation. Right now we're doing a very deep dive into what other jurisdictions are doing. And we're keeping all options on the table because our primary concern is the safety of our people and communities. And it's been said by our Premier and Minister Haggie, and I will say it a third time, it needs to be said over and over. People do need to exercise good judgment right now when it comes to outdoor activities. I think we've spoken each time we've done a media avail around drones when they're in the sky, we can't fly. Kind of a newer recreational hobby, I guess, that's come to our attention the last few days is around the boats, and they are hindering progress of our bombers if they're in bodies of water where the bombers are scooping down. So we certainly want to remind people, if you see activity in the area, just avoid that area and do your recreational boating somewhere else. I think my final comment will be to thank both our team in forestry. There is incredible beautiful stories that's coming out of this really challenging time. One of our guys yesterday set to go on vacation with his family. He's been carrying a heavy lift since we started. Cancelled flights, cancelled tickets, postponed because the commitment is here. Sat with a guy last night coming back from rotational work in Labrador, and he was landing and going straight out to do his volunteer fire work. We flew over Perry's Cove, and you could see where the fire went right to the edge and started back. And throughout the black, there was structures, houses, still perfectly intact. And that's a credit to the volunteer firefighters. So I just want to toss a big bouquet. And as the Premier started with the avail today, we really appreciate the efforts of so many. And I think, considering the challenging times that people are in, spirits were pretty high last night when we were out in Victoria moving through that area. Just a lot of people stepping up to do good work in a difficult time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. Any questions?
Welcome back. So there you got an update from the Premier, Minister Haggie, Minister Dempster. And we were talking earlier in the show about where people are getting their information, right? So the emergency alerts that come out on people's cell phones, for instance. I'm not sure what's going on here, but there's people in the office who are getting them and some who are not. So how can that possibly be the case? All of our numbers are in that data bank. Like when they do the national test and we give you the heads up that at 11:15 there's going to be an interruption. Well, people are getting these emergency alerts about a variety of things associated with the wildfire. I'm not getting any. So half the people that I've seen in the office and asked about it, they're getting them. The other half haven't gotten one all day. So I wonder how that works and what's actually going on. Let's see here. Let's rejoin Tony Power on line 3. Tony, you're back on the air.
Yes, sir.
So we were talking fixed link, and as a truck driver, whether or not you would utilize it. And I guess the basic summary answer was no, variety of factors. Time, fuel, the hilly conditions, road conditions in the spring and the like. Where to from here, Tony?
Well, I guess, like I said, I'm all for the tunnel for the people of Labrador. Yes, they deserve it, but the federal government got to look at the vessels that they got there, increase crossings, sailings, to allow for the traffic. Right now, they are booked halfway into next year, way up on volume or probably over capacity. The freight getting to and from the island with Marine Atlantic will be reduced. To travel to Labrador with it, or down the North Shore, it's still going to cost you valuable time. And as you mentioned before we went to the conference there, someone come from Winnipeg, once they get to Quebec City and head up that North Shore, they still got to cross in Tadoussac across the St. Lawrence to head on down. So you still got to deal with a body of water. If you're traveling that body of water in the winter, you still got ice conditions on the St. Lawrence, the same as we have on the Straits. So time-wise, if you got a delay with the boat, it could balance out, but, do we need the two of them? Sure, why not? You could increase a lot of traffic up that way for tourism, especially this time of the year. Some people travel it now because of the scenery and, anyone into hunting or fishing is beautiful country for it.
No doubt. And I mean, the thought that the folks on the Great Northern Peninsula and or in Labrador itself deserve easier access to the island. I totally get that. And look, welcome the call from folks in Labrador. But ultimately, this is not going to be anything that'll surprise anybody. This will always boil down to how much it costs to build, how much it costs to maintain, how much it's going to cost to use it. So regardless of who deserves it, and I don't disagree with your point, but the numbers will dictate whether or not this gets green-lit or not. On Marine Atlantic, Tony, you're on it all the time. So we hear stories about people can't book passage to get off the island, and if they do, they can't book passage to come back in a timely fashion. Then we see pictures that are sent to me anyway about the ferry setting sail without a full load of vehicles, whether it be trucks and or cars. What do you see?
At times you see that. It depends on the crossing and the time. I guess the majority of people would prefer a night crossing versus a day crossing, getting off and even, especially on the Newfoundland side, especially with our moose, so plentiful on the roads this time of the year. There's times, she's black solid, you can't move, you got a job to get out. There's other times there's empty space. She could be coming on a passenger restriction for hazmat conditions or freight. She mightn't be booked more on less on a morning sailing versus a night sailing, and I guess Marine Atlantic is the only one can really answer that. In regard to the trucks, it depends on when trucks get there for the sailings. We're limited on what we can drive a day. We are controlled electronically, so we could be 20 minutes out from that sailing and we're on the lot for the next one, and there's only 10 trucks on the boat. By the time she's sailing tonight, it could be 50.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. And I was just wondering what you see versus the reasons why. But I get that. And people do ask these questions about the training that truck drivers receive and how long they can drive per day and whether or not they're obliged to stop when Transport Canada says they are. So you say you're electronically monitored. So do you have an input when you get into the cab and begin to drive about when you're leaving, and then automatically you get a warning as to when you have to stop? Is that how that works?
Pretty well, yeah. It's all controlled electronically, just a little tablet we have, and it's hooked to the ECM in our truck. You can watch our speeds. My truck got a camera in it, which my office can view everything I'm doing, like facing forward camera. We're allowed to drive 13 hours a day, and we got a 16-hour window to do it. And she will show, and you got to take certain breaks during the day. You got to have a total of 10 hours off in a 24-hour period. And most systems that I've had since ELOG came in, they will prompt you when you're low on time, when you got to park, and etc.
Are highway tractor trailers governed for speed?
Some are. It kind of eased off the past few years. Ontario, Quebec brought that in, I'm going to say around 2008, 2009, and enforced it. It kind of eased off a little bit up there now because there's some issues with it. Cars and fires is plugging into trucks, check them or whatever there. But the majority of trucks out there now are governed at 105, especially with your bigger companies, right?
Last one, I'll let you go, Tony. So there's been a lot of chatter across the country about interprovincial trade. People talk about labour mobility and beer and booze and all the rest of it. But some of it is about trucking regulations. Can you help us understand what different regulations look like in different provinces?
It's all the same. It's a federal regulation. It's not a provincial.
So there's no restrictions on weight differences between provinces or none of that stuff?
No, we're supposed to be all the same right across Canada. You might have to have an axle on a certain trailer in a different position for a certain province. The only place with difference is in the US. We can only gross 80,000 pound down there, where trucks here can gross up to 120. Interesting
stuff. Anything else you want to say this morning, Tony?
Well, not too much, boy. The best way I can get you to understand about the fixed link, if you want to leave St. John's now and drive to Clarenville, you just go straight out the highway. To add time to it, you go up the historic Southern Shore, come back up like around Trepassey, up through St. Mary's Bay, go on out to Cape Shore, come up in Whitburn, then head to Clarenville. It'll be the same thing. Would add 2 hours or to a trip. So compare that to that Labrador would add 2 days on my side in a truck. In a passenger vehicle, well, you can drive what you want, right? Unlimited.
And this is on a personal note. Tony, you and your family have been evacuated, have you?
Yes.
Is that from Holyrood or where are you?
I'm in Holyrood. I left Monday to go load, and I had to come back. I left again yesterday, and I came back, so we had to evacuate yesterday.
I see your cat's in the sleeper in your truck. Listen, I wish you well. Be safe on the roads, Tony. And hopefully the evacuation order is lifted and the community is safe in the not too distant future.
Perfect. Yeah, hope so. And big hats off to the crews out working it, because it is hard work.
Here, here. Thanks, Tony. Stay in touch.
You too. Take care.
Okay, pal. Right, bye-bye. All right, there's some trucking info. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about ambulances, both in the air and on the ground. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 1. Dave, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Hi there.
How are you, buddy?
Doing okay. Thanks. How about you?
Great show so far. And before I get to my main topic, I want to put a serious shout out for all the firefighters on the ground and especially in the air, the ones that are fighting so the ground workers can work, to keep these crazy wildfires at bay from attacking our communities and I guess, and in fact, our lives. That's what this has been. This entire summer has been just a crazy number of these fires and communities that have been impacted by it. These fire bans, are put there for a reason. People aren't paying attention. Well, they should bloody well be fined. That is no question. I won't go into that. That's just common sense.
Yeah, I mean, just a couple of comments. So, of course, I know I can almost write the emails before I get them. It's about, government overreach, and it reminds people of lockdowns and stuff. To me, look, I want government to stay out of my bedroom like everyone else, but for me, it simply feels like recognizing that conditions are extremely dangerous insofar as the potential for a wildfire, and try to mitigate the risk as best possible, because people are being displaced from their homes. People have had their homes burnt down. We've had communities burned down to the ground. So it's, some slight inconveniences, which are always a pain in the neck. Like, I don't want to be told where I can go for a walk, but when we see the risks and we see the pictures and we hear the stories, just doing what we have to do for our own personal responsibility doesn't feel like a whole lot to ask.
No, it's not. And I mean, in all honesty, if it's going to be during a period of time where, anything from that, as was mentioned, the spark arrestor doesn't grab or hold a spark and it falls in an area where you're basically dry as a chip, you can only expect what we're getting. It'll be a short period of time. It'll rain again. Believe me, this won't last forever. You'll get you back in the woods doing whatever you want, but, in the event, in the possibility that one person does something stupid, I'll just start a little campfire here. I'm not going to let it get too big. But then an ember gets away. They have no control where it lands. We're seeing that now. That's obviously common sense that we don't do this.
Yeah.
That brings me to my next topic.
All right.
Common sense. The whole province has heard me in the past and I've gone on about the air ambulance situation. I'm going to bring it all together, and it also includes now, very much so, ground ambulance. And the integration that was supposed to have taken place in a new way of doing things, I got to complain to the Premier first, because not only is it his job as Premier now to deal with it, but he was also the Minister of Health when the problem was created. We integrated air and ground ambulance, which I thought was kind of foolish in the first place. There's never been a condition where somebody made a call from the back of an ambulance on the ground ambulance ride and said, we need an air ambulance, have one ready, and I'm on my way. These decisions are made in hospitals. And the frustrating part of this is this entire situation was created by the bureaucracy. Now, it was gained and given sanctimony by Premier Hogan when he was Minister of Health. And a company was brought in, and all of these changes were supposed to be put in place in terms of efficiency, security of operation, and everything, when in fact it should have been struck down before it was even started. There's too many things that are prevalent right now that and it absolutely reeks of a need to reassess the integration of air and ground ambulance services.
Just for clarity, so the ground ambulance is still, I mean, the integration of two is, I don't even know why that was necessarily a thing, but integrating the ground ambulance operations, that made sense to me. I mean, we had 60 different contracts out there, and it was actually costing us paramedics. If you couldn't get a job with the public sector with different coverage, different benefits, different pay, different on-call standards, we were getting kind of hurt on that front. So I understand, the amalgamation of all those contracts in the ground world, and in the air world, they brought in a private company to manage the system, right? So that's what we're talking about, right, Dave?
Exactly.
Okay.
And they've failed miserably at everything that you said, that the exact idea and the spirit of what you would think would occur has not occurred in this instance. I mean, we have seen situations where, okay, well, I can go into a number of them, but in particular, let's go with air ambulance right now, okay? When you got heart patients that are awaiting transfer from the West Coast and trauma patients, and they're basically being stockpiled in Corner Brook and Stephenville Hospital, taking sometimes weeks to be moved on to the next level of care, which we rely upon air ambulance for. This new company that's now managing our air ambulance is supposed to be responsible for the provision of the air tech crews, the medical flight crews, staffed and properly located to run this system properly. And they have failed colossally. Or maybe it's Premier Hogan that failed. And now we got Minister Howell that's going to have to come in and kind of pick up all of their mess, because basically it's become a total mess. Ground ambulance here this past weekend, I could read you, and I won't, a passage from a Facebook thing where a man's wife was sick, had to be rushed to Port Basque Hospital. There were no ground ambulances available to do that. So they got her to Port Basque Hospital by sending a ground ambulance from Stephenville, almost 2 hours away. When they got to Port Basque, it was found that, okay, she's not that good going to have to stay here. They were going to put her in a closet. There were no rooms in Stephenville. There were none in Corner Brook. So then the decision was made they were going to ship her to Burgeo from Port Basque by ground ambulance the very next day. I don't want to tell you the result of what happened with that lady. But I can assure you that there's no common sense, and two oars aren't hitting the water at the same time, nowhere within government when it comes to the delivery of these services, and they've gotten caught in their own bureaucracy. They cannot see the trees for the forest, or the forest for the trees, sorry. Yep. The issue of air ambulance, somebody in St. John's didn't realize we had an airport that could still be used in Stephenville. After I started bawling about it and complaining about it and putting a bit of egg on the face of the Premier and the Minister of Health, they used Stephenville Airport 5 minutes away from the hospital. Not a problem, and they could have been doing it all along. The people that are managing this service for us, it's our lifeline. I don't expect to have a complete heart system or whatever, heart medical crew set up in every hospital in Newfoundland. But we do need an efficient mechanism, i.e. a taxi ride on the ground and a taxi ride in the air. It should not be that difficult to put this all together to what makes sense and what works. It's an absolute joke to think that I could require an ambulance out here, like the people in Bay St. George South did last weekend, and call an ambulance that isn't coming. Or to call an ambulance that arrives there hours after you call for it in the first place. Obviously, the system isn't working. Like, we have an example here in our town. Our firefighters here, who are mostly medical trained, my son is one of them, respond about 90% of their calls now are medical. The actual instances of fire are minimal. We should have a perfectly staffed, 100% capable and ready ambulance system within municipalities, the same as we should have a doctor's office and all these type of things, the way things were.
Sure, I've got to get to the news, but the ground messes are one thing, but I'm pretty sure this is how it works. In the air ambulance world, the private company is simply going to manage day-to-day operations, staffing and the equipment and all that. That would be government mandate stuff. Government will give them the tools. They'll manage as best possible. So I think any questions about blame and staffing and equipment and ambulances and aircraft, that's a government issue, isn't it?
No, it's not. I read the request for proposal. Medivy got this contract. One of the parts of this contract were to have adequate and staffed medical flight crew.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. Government, when they craft an RFP, they're basically, whether we're talking about asphalt or air ambulance, government says this, you respond in kind, you win or you don't, the contract. So government sets the table here, and if they had to say adequate and have a distinct definition, which if you don't have one, is kind of idiotic in the first place, because my idea of adequate might be different than yours, might be different than Medivy's, might be different than Crystal Howell's. So definitions are probably pretty important. I'll give you another few seconds because I got to get to the news.
I'll use the word adequate. Perfect choice. Our air system is not adequate when you have 2/3 of the medical air ambulances located in Central, where they should be. They should not be on the Avalon. The Avalon doesn't need the air ambulance service. But yet every single air ambulance that's required anywhere in the province and in Labrador has to fly first to St. John's to pick up medical flight crew and then go perform a mission. Now, the days that you cannot fly in and out of St. John's, be it fog or whatever reason, there are no fly days. There are many on the Avalon. You're right out in the middle of the North Atlantic. Those days when we can't even pick up the air crews in St. John's, the entire system province-wide is paralyzed because of fog in the city.
Yeah, that's a fair point as well. I am late for the news, Dave, but I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Not a problem, sir. And Minister Howell and Premier Hogan, I'm not giving up on this. Fix it.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
See you, Dave. All right, let's take a break for the news. When we go back, an interesting reflection back to the 1977 Canada Summer Games, which were held here in town. Brendan's next. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Brendan. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Paddy, I'm back living in Newfoundland again, and when I came back, there was a little blurb on CBC from the 1977 Canada Games, and due to that, Mayor Breen gave me a call, and Danny asked me to come down to his office and go over some things that happened in 1977 with the run across Canada and promoting the games. and I made a promise to him then that I would, would like to be part of the games that are here in 2025 and support Team NL and all the different provinces that will come here. I spent 20-odd years away from Newfoundland, and just to let people know that the games are a big part of my life and the lives of many Newfoundlanders over the years, and it's great to see them back after 48 years.
I'm with you. I welcome the games. It's going to be pretty busy around town, and for folks who have normal commutes, you're probably going to have to adjust accordingly. But just as a sports person, I'm all for it, and I hope to be able to take in some of the action.
Yeah, and the people that have passed away since, with Mayor Wyatt and all the efforts of the city to get the games here and to have them here. And then, over the years, it gives me an outlet to support different things. I had a very good friend in the airline business, Pat White and Florence White, that passed away, and made it an objective of myself to support organ donations, because when people pass away waiting for organ donations, it's a hard way to lose a friend when you have the opportunity to give. It's the same way with giving blood. You have it in you to give, and it's good to do that. But so things like that are very important in my life right now, because I'm retired after 38 years in education. And I see some of your callers today who are talking about education, and no better way than sports and to have a school that has school spirit and evolved around sports and family. We have to fix our family sometimes too now. In this generation, after seeing so many single-parent families, we need to support the family and the concept of family, and that doesn't happen in schools enough, where we look after the mental health of students, and you will see improvement in academics if you have a one-stop shopping, especially with community schools. And it's not just about throwing money at the system or more teachers in the system. Is giving the teachers the tools to do their job and to be able to have low class numbers, and to have mental health services right at the building. When it comes to breakfast for learning or attendance, you will see improvements if the school has a community outlook towards education.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
A couple of quick questions about the games.
Yeah.
So, what was your involvement in the 1977 games?
1977, in August, it was the opening ceremony. So 20,000 people came out to the Canada Games track at Memorial University, and for the opening of the games. On April the 6th, 1977, myself and Max Lawler started out in Victoria, BC, and I ran across Canada. Took 120 days, and culminating in coming into St. John's on August the 6th. Along the way, we stopped and had news conferences encouraging people to support the Canada Games and their concept and to come to Newfoundland, because we're very proud of the fact that we had the Canada Games here. It was the first time we had an all-weather track for track and field. I was involved for years in track and field, especially Telegram 10 Mile, provincial marathon champion, and so on. So I had a background in track and field. Mayor Wyatt and Mr. Crosby and a few more people at the time in St. John said, what's the best way for me to take part, because the age limit had changed and to take part in the Canada Games. and I was too old to take part at 22. So they asked me to, well, do you think you could run across Canada? So they got me some time off work, and then away I went. And each province, we met people like Rennie Levesque, the Premier of Ontario, Mr. Davis, and so on, and presented them with a pair of running shoes and a plaque to commemorate the Canada Games in St. John's in 1977, and encouraging people to come here.
Yeah, I was just a kid, obviously, but one of my good friends, Nicky Vinicum, his father Noel was part of the organising committee, so we all had Canada Games shirts and kit bags and stuff. I remember that quite clearly. And looking forward to this going around, I have to say. And you said you were talking to Mayor Breen about being involved in these games. What involvement do you have this go around?
Well, it's incredible when you say Mr. Vindigan, because I have a Canada Games flag that's signed by Mr. Vindigan, Mayor Wyatt, and so on. And they're going to be on display. I'm at Canada Games House on the 20th of August. From 1 to 2, and some of those items will be there. The first T-shirt that I wore and the first pair of shoes that I wore at the start and at the end of the games. And these items are all going to the rooms after this summer games. So it's an event that helped to polarize people to be excited about the Canada Games here. One of the things that I'm really somewhat taken back by the fact that only 5,000 people can fit into Mile 1 when there was over 20,000 people along the streets and at the Canada Games in 1977, and a lot lower cost to get in, At this games, besides being at Canada Games House, I'm going to be going to some different events and scheduled to give out some of the medals at different events, championships.
Fantastic. Really appreciate making time for the show this morning on a little walk down memory lane. Thanks for doing it.
Okay. Before I go, I'd like to say thank you to the VOCM too, because I was employed with VOCM in early years when John Murphy and George McLaren and Paul Raines and Beth Jameson and Ron Pumphrey. We had VOCM was very committed to community, and we had the VOCM 590s with Paul Raines, and it was travel the province playing hockey and raising money for different organizations. I just like to say before I go, a big shout out to the firefighters. We need to be careful. I live in the Yukon, and we had fire breaks around all new subdivisions that were being built and around the houses also. We had to get away from building so many houses close to wooded areas. I know we live in Newfoundland, but we have to be aware of fire breaks, what we can do to protect ourselves, because the environment is changing.
That it is. I appreciate your time this morning, Brent. Thanks a lot.
All the best.
You too, pal. Bye-bye. All right, and every time I think about the 77 games, it was the first visit to the province by one of the legendary Canadians, Terry Fox. He was there playing wheelchair basketball. I always loved that story. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to the Deputy Mayor of the City of St. John's. That's Sheila O'Leary. Deputy Mayor O'Leary, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning, Patty. Thanks for taking my call.
Happy to do it. Did you hear Orlando Ryan yesterday call?
Since we chatted. What's that?
Did you hear Orlando Ryan call yesterday about the Margaret's Place development?
Well, no, actually, I did not, and that's exactly why I'm calling today. So I'm sorry I did not hear it yesterday. So I'm very interested in putting this forward. But well, first of all, obviously, I just want to say my heart and prayers go out to the people who are dealing with the fires, Patty, and CBN, CBS, and gratitude to the firefighters, because this is actually the issue that I'm talking about is actually dealing with fire issues. But anyway, I just wanted to put that out there to our friends and neighbors. As municipal leaders, we all try to work together. Anyway, just sending prayers to everybody who's being impacted there. But no, I didn't hear your call yesterday, Patty, and that's exactly why I'm calling. I wanted to call to speak to you and your listeners about kind of a contentious development concern that's happening in the city of St. John's, right in the Rabbittown, Georgestown area on Margaret's Place. And so local residents have been very, very concerned. So I'm not sure if your caller actually that was what was being talked about.
No, actually, I have to apologize because I'm conflating two different proposals. She was talking about something on Lamarchin Road, and we're talking about the other one. Okay, my apologies.
Yeah, so this one, so just so you know, Margaret's Place, just to put it in context, is really an unprecedented length of a cul-de-sac. It's housed right in between Brother Rice Junior High and Holy Heart of Mary High School. It was, of course, the former Sister of Mercy's land that was sold in the late 1990s. It's to the private market. It's got a very long and complex development history. And like I said, it's an unprecedented cul-de-sac. We've never really seen anything like it. So there's a lot of development that has happened over the years in that particular area. It is a beautiful, beautiful area, no doubt. But there's a lot of concerns coming forward from the residents about a number of different issues over the years. But more recently, the one that is on the table right now is the Belvedere Laneway. And I really wanted to call you because I wanted to make sure that people, especially in the Rabbittown, Georgestown area, are well aware that there will be some changes coming to that laneway, and it's because of fire safety issues. So if you, Patty, you might recall Belvedere Laneway. I walk through it regularly.
Oh, yeah.
It's a public laneway right on the steps there of Holy Heart of Mary on the side of Kingsgate Condominium, and it leads from the end of the bulb of Margaret's Place right onto Bonaventure Avenue. Lots of kids use it. Of course, we have thousands of kids in that area. And so the issue is there's been development happening, over a period of time. I've certainly been very proactive on a number of issues that have happened over the years. But now we've basically heard word from our city engineers that the laneway has to be expanded. So the bulb on the bottom of that enters onto Margaret's Place has to be expanded, which means that some trees are going to come down. These are older heritage trees, and basically they've engaged the fire chief and the city arborist. And of course, nobody's happy about this because it's really an area that people love to use as a pedestrian laneway. Obviously, lots of kids in the area. But when it comes down to it, nuts and bolts is that life safety issues are first and foremost. We have to make sure that we can get fire trucks in there. So many months ago, I tabled a petition on behalf of the residents, and the ward councillor, Ravencroft, has been very proactive in response to the residents as well. And we've been trying to represent the residents because they didn't know anything about this happening. They were very, they organized, they were very articulate in their presentation, which they still haven't heard back from to date. But the work is, imminent. So it's happening this week or next week. And I just wanted to make sure that the public were aware that this is going to be happening. Because there's been, I can't tell you how many emails and calls I've received on it, and I've certainly been trying to address each and every one of the issues that people have around that. So, so that's why I wanted to call you because, of course, we're in a housing crunch. We know that development is first and foremost on the table, but there's also the potential for overdevelopment in areas. And as I mentioned, this particular cul-de-sac is very unprecedented in its length and its density. There's more development that's potentially on the docket for that particular area. And of course, it begs the question about, number one, the public engagement process that has happened to date in that particular area. The residents certainly have made it clear to me that they felt that they have not been engaged properly, especially regarding the Belvedere Laneway issue that's happening. There's going to be probably more to come in the future. But, the concern, of course, around the schools, the thousands of students that are basically using it there, lack of green space. They're down at the bottom of the cul-de-sac playing soccer and have nowhere to go other than that. So there's a myriad of issues that are on Margaret's Place that I really can't get into. As I mentioned, it's a beautiful area, lots of great residents there. But the concern on the table right now is that Belvedere Laneway is going to be opened up for fire access in the very near future.
So that was the only option?
That was the only option, and trust me, we have been going through it all. Look, kudos to the residents. I've never seen anything more organized than the residents. They have a committee that has been struck between the residents of McKees Grove, Kingsgate Condominium, and the townhouses on Margaret's Place. And very articulate. We're not talking about people just slapping together a petition. They have gone through all the issues, including snow clearing, access. Is this going to be something where there's going to be ongoing traffic going through, or is it a public laneway that will have bollards? Well, our engineers, thankfully, responded to the residents on all the key points that they brought forward. And there is a requirement to have two means of egress. But Patty, what begs the question that is here now? Now this has to happen, and I mean, the reality is nobody is going to take their life safety into their hands. They know that they have to be able to get a fire truck in there. So they're going to implement a system where they'll actually have bollards or gates that can open for the fire access, but it will remain closed. It's not going to become a street. But it's this chipping away kind of process that happens over a period of time that certainly has been a point of concern for residents. They've come directly to me and to the ward councillor, Ravencroft, as I mentioned. And I've been trying to bring these issues forward on their behalf. So now we find this is what we have to deal with. Trees coming down that are heritage trees, a laneway expanded in an area that's right smack dab in between schools. So I have concerns. The residents certainly have made their concerns loud and clear to me. This is going to happen, and it has to happen for life safety, but I think it's a cautionary note about where we go from here in terms of further development that is going to be impacting that particular area. So I just wanted to call in to make sure that people were aware that this was on the docket, because there aren't public notices that go out. We wanted to make sure that the residents in the area were fully apprised, because a lot of people use that particular laneway.
Oh, absolutely. It's really quite popular, and a shame to lose. Just because of the time on the clock, we have to leave it there this morning, Sheila.
Okay, well, listen, I just want to bring it forward. Thanks, and it's wonderful to talk to you. And one last thing, 1977 Canada Summer Games. I was 12 years old, and I had to go in between the innings of the ball games and sweep off the plates for my dad. I was mortified. But it's a memory lodged in my brain. So congratulations to all the Canada Summer Games athletes and volunteers.
Mr. Celtic himself. And it's worth mentioning that we're talking baseball. Your brother Mike was some player. Yes, Mike, when he got into AAA, and of course my dad had a tryout with the Brooklyn Dodgers. So yeah, baseball, I lived and breathed it growing up for sure. Appreciate the time, Sheila. Thanks a lot. Okay, take care, Patty. All the best. Bye-bye. That's Sheila O'Leary, Deputy Mayor of Town. Let's take a break for the news. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let us go. Line number one. Good morning, Pat. You're on the air.
Yes, Patty. Just trying to get updated fire information if I can, because hoping ones like that started yesterday don't get out of control, because if they do, we are really, really in a bad situation, then an extreme situation, because we don't have the resources, and it's taxing resources, so we need to get ahead of these fires like in Martins Lake really, really quickly before they become like Kingston, well out of control. Anyway, there was two fires yesterday, Patty. One, I'm not hearing nothing on it this morning, so it must not have developed into anything. Did you hear of a fire out the West Coast way, Tucker's Pond?
I haven't heard it mentioned in the fire update, so I don't know if it's developed into an out-of-control fire. I really don't know, Pat.
Okay. There was a fire anyway, Tucker's Pond. I'm hoping, if people don't know where that is, they're going to have to look it up. It's out around St. Vincent's area. The other one, have you heard of the size, or what the size is this morning for Martin's Lake fire?
Yeah, they did make mention of it in the news conference. Is that the one they said that had triple in size, or was that the one out in Holyrood? I don't know. I'll have to confirm with the newsroom, to be honest with you, because while
Holyrood fire is stable, Patty, when it started, it was about 10. It went then that evening to about 20 in size. It's stable, and from what I'm hearing from firefighters or people, friends that are volunteers and work fire out in that area, that they were hoping to get a ground crew in today. So it's basically, it's perimeter has been maintained, and they're trying to work on hot spots.
Okay, I'm just looking.
That one is looking pretty good as long as something don't flare up.
Was your question about the Kingston fire?
No, my question was about the one that started yesterday out Bay d'Espoir Highway, Martin's Lake, Great River.
I'm looking for the information now as per size, and it's not listed.
I'm hearing different reports. I'm hearing that it was at 60 last night, but that's gone up now to over 150. I'm hearing no, it's still stable as what it was last night. So I'm just curious myself.
Yeah, me too. I don't have an answer, but I'll try to get one, and I'll speak to it right here on the air as soon as I get it. How's that?
Sounds good, Pat. Because that fire, according to Eddie, is the same as the Kingston fire. That fire is burning hot, for anyone who knows what that means. And that means that fire can expand really, really quickly. And we're bringing in fire equipment now from New Brunswick. We cannot afford this fire to get like Kingston, to get out of hand, to get like Ragged Harbor, which is over 1,500 kilometers that we're trying to deal with right now. This will quickly, if that gets out of hand, this will quickly overwhelm resources that even we can bring in. If we bring in more from Nova Scotia or somewhere, in Atlantic Canada wouldn't have the resources to supply to us to deal. So this is, and I'm shocked that Mr. Hogan has left it this long even to bring in or ask for help yesterday evening. That's what he's saying he did. He said he's responsible for these 3 extra planes coming in. But I'm surprised he's left it this long because this was a bad situation that he's left till it became a possibly dire situation before handling it properly.
I don't know what the timing was for requesting assistance from New Brunswick or anywhere else, to be honest with you.
Well, it's interesting we mentioned the assistance thing, because the minute this happened in Holyrood, and like I said, the perimeter was maintained and it didn't cross over the highway or anything that evening. So it was pretty much a fire that needed, a serious situation, definitely, and people evacuated, but it was perimeter being maintained. But all the same day, which would allow them provincial resources of some nature. I don't know. I don't work in politics, provincially, federally. I don't know how that works. But declaring a state of emergency and now labels you things that not declaring it doesn't. So the minute that it became, okay, we need evacuation of this area, they declared in Holyrood a state of emergency to be able to get access to certain resources. So yes, it's funny how that works and how some provincially or communities go that route, and then others like the provincial or whatever, it takes forever to suddenly realize, guys, we need to declare, a provincial emergency. We need help.
Yeah, and requests have to go out. It's not like premiers are calling and asking, do you need anything? Well, I don't think they are anyway, because they all have their own concerns.
No, I believe New Brunswick did reach out to us. That's what I'm hearing, Patty. But I'm hearing that it was also based on an initial request through whatever the federal route would be, going to the federal government, and after that request was made and New Brunswick was made aware of this, New Brunswick then reached out to offer their assistance.
Fair enough. Pat, appreciate the time. Just the sentiment we all share is hopefully we can get a handle on these fires. It's a real shame there's no rain in the forecast, because that's what we really need on top of favourable weather and wind conditions. So, boy, oh boy, there's a lot going on.
I wanted to throw one thing out there.
Quickly.
If you have 1-2 quick minutes, Patty.
I have one.
One thing. Please, the provincial government, federal, whoever can do this, especially if there's any volunteer firefighters out there now who are kind enough to be giving up their jobs, or fishermen or something, giving up fishing income, giving up income in any fashion to extend their volunteer fire activity to help out. Please consider some way of reimbursing these people, especially anyone who's lost income or lost other expenses, volunteering to help fight these fires. Please consider if we can do something or set up something provincially to compensate these people.
Fair enough. Thank you, Pat. I got to get to the break.
Exactly. Thanks, Patty. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. All right, just a quick update, and might not be the biggest deal, but it will be for some, is so that the Challenge Cup semi-finals that were scheduled tonight to take place out in Topsail Field, they're going to be relocated to King George. So the game times and all the other match arrangements remain unchanged, just relocating the semi-finals for the Challenge Cup from Topsail Field to King George this evening. Let's take our final break of the morning. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Everett. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. I really appreciate the opportunity to have a discussion with you today.
No problem.
Patty, my topic and concern for today is the deplorable state of many of the provincial roads and road shoulders in our region, the southern portion of the Burin Peninsula. Now, Patty, certain sections of our region's provincial roads will be paved. However, many other problem areas will not be paved, and those areas, Patty, now are my main concern. A tender was called on May the 30th, and it closed on June the 16th. Patty, in my opinion, the tender should have been published earlier, so the preparation work required before the pavement can be laid could have been completed earlier. On August the 16th, 2 months will have passed, and not a spoonful of pavement has been laid to date. In the meantime, Patty, vehicles continue to be damaged, the potholes are getting deeper, and the road shoulders are becoming more dangerous every day. And unfortunately, in my opinion, the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure in our region is doing very little when it comes to preventive maintenance. And Patty, this lack of preventive maintenance is resulting, as I said earlier, in costly repairs to vehicles and a continuing danger to the public. And the longer those problem areas remain in the state of disrepair, the more costly they will be to fix. Last year, the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure did pave sections of highway between Frenchman's Cove and Grand Bank and did an outstanding job. Patty, I can't understand why the same can't be done in other problem areas in our region, and indeed the province, instead of filling the potholes with coal patch, what I call Band-Aid repairs. As an example, Route 222, also known as the Salt Pond Winterland Road, will have approximately 4 kilometers paved, leaving approximately 6 kilometers in the state of disrepair it is now. As far as I'm concerned, the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure needs to step up to the plate and repair that 6 kilometers of highway and other problem areas. about the potholes and the road shoulders. I don't know if you'd like to comment on it or not.
Well, I mean, I'm familiar with the issue. We've spoken many times on this front, and I hear from people in every nook and cranny of the province talking about road conditions and road shoulders. Well, sometimes we just stick with the blacktop, but the condition of the shoulder of the road is also a huge factor, whether it be for maintaining the stability of the asphalt itself and just for general safety concerns. You never know when you're going to need a piece of shoulder.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. So I don't know if you want to say anything else. I didn't have anything else to say on this particular topic. I don't know if I got time left for another quick topic.
You have time for a quick one. Go ahead.
Well, just recently, in fact, a couple of nights ago, I had the pleasure of participating in a roundtable discussion organized by our MP, Jonathan Rowe, the MP for Terranova, the Peninsulas, and the Conservative Party. Paddy, the focus was on tourism in our region, and there was a good turnout and a 2-hour discussion, and I just like to list 4 of the topics that was discussed in relation to tourism. Okay. Number 1, how do we feel the tourism sector is now compared to years ago? The consensus was that more tourists are visiting our province and region than in the past. Number 2, the cost for tourists to visit our province using Marine Atlantic was seen to be a major concern. If the cost was equal to what the same distance by road would cost, many more tourists would vacation on and in our province and in our region. Number 3, if our region was to look at tourism as a regional industry, the chances of more tourists visiting our region would improve. And lastly, although tourism is important in our region, we must have other industries if we are to grow and prosper. Would you like to comment on that?
No, I don't think there's any arguing that. Access, whether it be getting here and getting around here, is always going to be the key to growing tourism. You know, I guess there's lots of moving parts. There's, you know, rental car fleets and basic understanding of what people can or cannot do when they arrive. So, yeah, no argument. I think that all makes sense to me.
Well, sir, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate yours, Everett. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, very likely the final word goes to line number 3. Say good morning to the Mayor of Avondale. That's Don Lewis. Good morning, Mayor Lewis. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. I'm a first-time caller, I guess, but I'm calling on behalf of the town of Avondale. I am the mayor, and also I am the Liberal candidate for the Harbour Main district, and part of my district now, or our district, is involved with an evacuation, and we got fire on the go in Holy Road and Seal Cove areas. So the reason why I'm calling, we had some events planned here in Avondale for the weekend. We had a family day and a Brady Lewis ball tournament that happens yearly. But we got to eliminate any risk of fire. I mean, these events have been going on for years, and they haven't started fires. But right now, if we do get a fire up in this area, I guess resources are exhausted and limited. So the town has agreed to postpone these events until further notice, and that eliminates any risk. And also, on behalf of the town of Avondale, I'd like to thank all emergency response people, firefighters, police, the Salvation Army, and the emergency center that has been set up in CBS Stadium. I visited yesterday, and it's an excellent venue, and people are getting looked after. And also, I ask our residents and the neighboring towns to follow all the regulations, especially on fire bans, report any open fires, and be safe. So that's a short call, but that's all I wanted to do today.
That's fair messages. I appreciate the time, Mayor Lewis. Stay in touch.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Bye-bye. Yeah, again, those who are working actively with the fires and with the evacuees, what have you, bravo. And for the rest of us, everybody understands the risk. Everybody understands what they should or should not be doing. And hopefully common sense plays a big role here as we do indeed try to display our own personal responsibility. The fires and the stories we're hearing are devastating. So let's see if we can't decrease those as best possible. All right, pretty good show today. Big thanks to all hands who support the program, all of the listeners, the callers, emailers, tweeters. You are all right. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk again in the morning. Bye-bye.